Career Chronicles, where we chat with some of the best and brightest professionals across various verticals, career, I think Israel is here, across various verticals, careers, and industries. Hi, Israel. Good afternoon or good evening.
Yeah, good evening, James. How you doing?
I am doing good and excited to have you here. And just before you join, I was just introducing everyone to another episode of my Career Chronicles. It's episode 15. And in this place, we chat with the best professionals across various industries and career paths. And we get to unpack their journey. And like we typically say over here, it is the show that we talk about the part of everyone's career that you will not find on their LinkedIn page. Yeah, so that's going to be Israel telling us everything about his career that you cannot find on his LinkedIn page. And for today, we have a very special guest, and I'll be chatting with Israel Adeleye, and he's got a lot to tell us. He's worked with Amazon Music as a user experience designer, and before then, he was with MoneyGram. And then he came all the way from doing his bachelor's in architecture all down to doing his master's in design. I mean, that's something very interesting. I would also like us to talk about. But typically, he spends most of his time building experiences for millions of users. Today, we are going to unpack all of that journey, what it is like, how he got there, what his day to day is like, and then how every other person can get there. And don't forget everything about him that you will not find on his LinkedIn page. I guess that's a very important important information. And yes, guess what is new again today? I think I have a new microphone too. Yeah, shout out to my friend Grace who gifted me the microphone as a birthday gift. Anyway, Mr. Israel, welcome to my career chronicles.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. Happy to be here. I appreciate the invite to be able to share my story and hopefully help someone who is trying to, get into this journey of becoming a product designer in the future. So, really happy to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. And we are just going to get right into it.
Yeah.
And we have a very conventional way of starting this show because we want to be sure that we get it all the way from the beginning, how they started. So my first question for you, if you're ready, I'm ready. We can get this started off on a high frequency. And before I go there, I want to just give a shout out to everyone who is able to join us live. The comment is open like we normally do. So feel free to just maybe your name and where your location you're joining from. And then as we go ahead, feel free to also, I see a bunch of people joining us. I really appreciate you taking time to join us across whatever location. So you can just share your name and wherever you're joining from. And then if you have any question for Israel on the product designer career, just put it there as we journey through the whole show. We are going to just pause and then ask those questions to him, and then we can all address that together. So, welcome everyone once again. And getting it started on a high frequency, my first question for you, Israel, is tell us about growing up, tell us about your childhood life, and just tell us everything we can possibly know about your journey from growing up as a child up until this level. And little caveats, when you go for interview and they say, tell us about yourself, they want to
Mhm.
give you an offer at the end of the day. But I'm just saying this to say that I don't have any offer to give you at the end of this question.
No problem. Let's see where I start. So, growing up, I would say I've always been an artistic or creative child. So, I was that kind of kid that would like to build stuff with my hands, like create little models of houses or cars, or just draw whatever I could see, people, buildings, and all of that. So, I was a creative since I've been a little child. And that definitely influenced my career path. Like getting into secondary school in Lagos, Nigeria. So I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
Um, I schooled at what's the name of the primary school again? Secondary school. Christ the Redeemer Secondary School. Man, it's been a while back, so
I know.
forgive me if I forget some of the details.
Hmm.
Um, so I was in the science class, and I've always had like an affinity for the science side of things, like physics, math, chemistry. I loved all of those. But then I also still try to culture and nurture my artistic side by continuing to draw in my free time, continue to try to create whatever I could in my free time. And somehow I stumbled upon architecture. as a field when I was in secondary school, and it got me very curious. Like, architecture to me is combining art and science to create physical experiences for people that they can delight in. So that was like a no-brainer for me. That's what I had to go and study in university. So I went to Covenant University to study architecture. Thankfully, I got in. And it was a wonderful experience for sure. I really love architecture because you get to really create the experience someone will go through when they walk into a space. Whatever
Mhm.
activities they do in that space is completely tied to how the designer pictured it or envisioned it at the time he was, still at the drawing board. So there is a lot of mental models or philosophies that go into creating a space. It's not just people think you just, carry pen and paper and just draw a bunch of boxes, say this is the living room, this is the bedroom, and you give it to someone to build. Now it's a lot more complicated than that. You have
Mhm.
to wear different hats. You have to think about the different kinds of people that would use that space, whether it's a typical residential building, you think of the family that will use that space. What are their interests? What do they like? What are their typical day to day activities? What are the um, outliers, the once in a while activities they will carry out in that space, and how do all of those influence the design you are proposing? Is it going to enhance the experience in that space? Is it going to make it a delightful environment for them to be in, or is it going to take away from that? And you also have to think about like going to commercial buildings like hotels or museums. You're thinking about the business side of things and also the user side of things, because the end users are the people visiting the museums or hotels to stay there. But I mean, the people that own the building or commissioned you to design that project are trying to run a business. They're trying to make money. So you have to factor in how the business itself would run. What are the inner workings of how like hotels work? You can't just look at it solely from the perspective of the user, like you're going there to just go asleep or stay there for the night. No, what does it take to run a hotel? How does the laundry get channeled, like from all the different rooms, housekeeping? How does the whole system work? How does delivery of food to the hotel work? There are just so many complexities that people don't really consider until you get into a program like architecture, and you start to broaden your horizon with knowledge. So it really started to open my mind getting into architecture. I learned to be curious for sure, because you have to start to think outside the box of just, you are trying to design something beautiful. Yes, everybody wants something that looks good, but is it functional? So that often requires you to learn beyond the field you're in. If you're designing for uh, a commercial building like a bank, you need to learn about what accounting is, how bankers think, like how the system works and all of that. So you just gather a lot of seemingly useless or broad knowledge, but it all helps you in the experience you're trying to create for others. So architecture was a really beautiful field, and going into how I now eventually transition into design,
Yep.
because I know that's the part that people are usually very interested in. Like, if it's such an amazing field, why did you switch? Why did you change your career just after getting out of school? So, unfortunately, as beautiful as architecture is, unfortunately, it's often very underpaid or undervalued, undermined in different countries across the world, specifically in Nigeria, specifically, because that's where I grew up. Architects are not really appreciated for all the work they do, and that reflects in the money they earn from the jobs they do. The salary they earn is very, very, it's laughable. Is how I'll put it. Yeah, because we do a whole lot compared to the jobs doctors and engineers do. I know people have a lot of respect for doctors and engineers, but very rarely would you see people, openly appreciating architects. But then when you really think about it, all of these beautiful structures we're standing in, this building you're in right now is designed by an architect. And
Absolutely.
for you to be enjoying the space, it means to some degree the architect did a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very important building block of society, but it's often not reflected in, how the architects are compensated in their jobs. So in Nigeria specifically, it's very bad. So the kind of life I wanted to live, the career I wanted to build, Nigeria was the structure of Nigeria, the architecture field in Nigeria just wasn't going to support that very well. So I started to look at how I could, grow myself and, earn the kind of money that would give me the life I want to live. Because I know money isn't everything, but you need money to survive.
It's something.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started looking at how I could, maybe practice architecture elsewhere. Maybe it doesn't have to be Nigeria. Maybe Nigeria is just really doesn't like architects. But unfortunately, I found that worldwide architecture just isn't really appreciated.
Right.
Even here in the US, compared to similar professions like engineers or doctors, structural engineers, all of them, the disparity in pay is it's amazing. It's insane. So we do all this work and we get very little for it. So um and that's discouraged a lot of people who had, promising futures, very talented architects that I've met, that I've worked with, but they had to pivot into a different career just because what they earn isn't enough to sustain their livelihood, their lifestyle. So I had to start looking into different, you know, career paths that I could apply the skills I learned, something that will still allow me to create the way I have that freedom of creativity in architecture. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon design as a field, like product design. I was already doing, I would say, freelance graphic design while I was back in college, just to earn a little money on the side. And a few times I would hear about product design, UX design to come up. Like you get clients, you design a poster for a brand identity, and they would also ask, like, can you create a website, or can you do UX UI for my website or something like that. So those were the first instances of me hearing the term UX design or UI design. So I started to learn a little bit about it just as a way to, earn a little bit more money. But when I really sat down to do some research about product design as a field, I saw that there are so many parallels between UX design and architecture. So if you look at architecture as creating an experience for a user within a physical space, product design is creating the experience for a user in the digital space for a specific
That
product.
that's like a bingo moment because I was gonna say something because I remember vividly like my first offline chat with you and we're just chatting about the whole career thing. I'm like, hey man, you here, you came all the way from architecture and then you are now in design, getting even going as far as getting your master's. And then I remember that in that conversation you were trying to explain to me the relationship between architecture and then even a product design, more like one is on the digital side and then the other one is on the physical side. So I'm pausing you so that we can unpack a few things here, and then we want to just make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that we are not missing anything. So how were you able to like leverage this relationship? Because apparently there is a correlation here between like the architectural side and then the product design side. So how did you leverage that correlation now to just foster your transition completely to like the digital side of the design and not just the physical side of the design, which is more like what the architectural side takes care of?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would say it's mostly in the methodologies and the mental model the designer operates in when they're trying to, create an experience. It's very similar thinking about a physical space and a digital space. You're thinking about what the user is trying to accomplish when they go into a specific room. This is for architecture now. When they're going into a bedroom, what are they trying to do? When they're in the living room, what are they trying to do? How do they want to navigate between the different spaces from the bedroom to the living room to the kitchen? It should be easy for you to move between these spaces. It's the same thing for, a digital product. Say, um, a music app. You're on the home page, you want to go to where you have your saved songs and playlists, you want to go to your library. It should be easy to navigate between this places. So the mental model is just very similar. You think about wayfinding as a concept. You do that in architecture, you also do that in product design. You think about empathy as a concept when you're designing. You do that in architecture. Like you said, you have to wear the hats of so many people when you're designing in architecture, wear the hats of the end user of the space itself. You have to wear the hats of the owner of that space. If it's a business space, someone who is trying to use that space to generate revenue, you have to wear the hats of even the approval committees, the structural engineers, the people you're going to collaborate with, the structural engineers, the mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. Because, yeah, the architect kind of drives the design of the space. They're like the visionaries of the project, but you have to work with people to bring that project to life.
Mm-hmm.
The structural engineers are the ones that are going to make sure that structure is safe to stand, like it's going to stand and there will be no issues. It's not going to collapse on someone's head. The mechanical engineers are the ones that are going to make sure all the plumbing services, the HVAC, the ventilation, everything works well. That you're able to stay in that space and the air quality would be nice and okay. The electrical engineer would make sure you're able to get power in that building. So it's similar to product design as well. You have the vision for the how the products would look, how the experience would feel, but then who's going to build the app? It's going to be a software developer that's going
Mm-hmm.
to actually program that app. Who's going to guide um, the sprints? Who's going to guide the design of the app to make sure it's aligning with product goals, to make sure that we're going to hit those goals that the people who own the product, who is trying to generate revenue from the products, are the benchmarks they've set. So those are like your product managers, the product team in general, who's going to make sure that it's compliant with the legal policies in the country it's being deployed. That's the legal team. So there are a lot of collaborators you would work with as a product designer, as an architect, that the mindset is just you're the visionary in creating this platform, whether it's a physical space or a digital space. You have an idea of what it's meant to look like and feel like going through the spaces, but then there are people you need to work with to bring that to life. So it's very similar in that sense. And the concepts I mentioned before, like wayfinding, empathy, um even design thinking in general, you have to start from defining the problem. What is the problem you're trying to solve in this space? You research about it. Who does this problem affect? Who's the target user group of the problem or the solution you're trying to provide? Who is going to
Mm-hmm.
benefit the most from that solution? You start to think of concepts or ideas that would solve that problem. You implement it, and then based on feedback, you refine those ideas. Now that is where things start to differ from product design and architecture, because in architecture, once you build a structure, it's kind of set in stone. You can't go there and be knocking things down anyhow. Even though, yeah, you can do renovations, you can do redesigns, but it costs a whole lot of money to make you know severe changes like that in a physical building than it does with a digital product. Digital products, the whole process of design from ideation to implementation, it can happen very fast and be repeated continuously
Right.
over the span of many years or many months. Whereas for architecture, the timeline just takes a longer process. You spend a long time designing, you spend an even longer time, implementing, depending on the scale of the building. It could take years for a building to finish construction,
Right.
and then going back based on feedback of the users that will use that space, you may tweak some things here and there, but you don't have that design freedom to do like a complete overhaul, and it's usually very expensive. So the speed at which things move, the speed at which projects are completed in product design and architecture is something that's very different, and something that I really enjoy with product design, because we're able to move really fast. We're
Mm-hmm.
able to implement these changes very fast and see the effects they would bring, to see the impact it will have on the end experience, like the experience of the users at the end of things, and we're able to provide a better experience to our users very quickly, as opposed to with designing architecture that takes a while.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so I want us to like step back a bit and fall back to first principles, and like I typically do on this show, because I feel like there could be people watching this who are not really, who are wondering actually, what is this product design everyone is talking about? What is this user experience design everyone is
Mhm.
talking about? Is it just to put up some drawings on paper, or just to, throw some designs out? What exactly
Yeah.
does it mean? So to go back to first principles, I'm just going to ask you, what exactly is product design and why do we need it in our society today?
All right. Yeah, that's a great question. So, product design, thinking about digital products, and I would say there is product design in the sense of digital products, and there is also product design as it relates to physical products. So, the field I'm in right now is for digital products. So that's like the Instagram, the Facebook, every app you see on your phone is a
Hmm.
digital product, and a product designer is behind that to some degree. So product design is how I would define it is essentially crafting a delightful experience that is functional and meaningful to the user in a way that it allows them to accomplish whatever goal they came to accomplish within that platform you're in.
Mm. Mm. I like.
So
Go for it. Mm.
yeah, so we can unpack that a little bit. What does it mean to craft that experience? It's a little vague, and that's kind of intentional because people tend to box, the things a product designer does, put into little brackets. Like, is it, just designing on Figma? Is it just, changing the colors of what the platform looks like? I would say it's all of that, to be
Okay.
honest. It's all of that. It's very complicated. You need to think about every little detail about that platform, because even the seemingly insignificant stuff can affect how someone that comes into a platform would engage with it. It can add to or take away from the experience within the app. So like, imagine you open Instagram and you're scrolling through it and you wanted to send a funny post you found to a friend or something, but then there was no send button, or the send button was hard to find. Say it was, you first had to tap one button, like an overflow button, and then tap something else within that menu before you now found send. That would be frustrating, wouldn't it? Like, you
Sure.
have to go through so many loops to send something. So that it sounds very silly. Like, of course, you just put the send button there, but when you are thinking of building an app from scratch or a platform from scratch, all of these decisions need to be made or thought through by product designers. Like, what would you do, or how might the user accomplish this goal? Whether it's to send something, whether it's to like a post, whether it's to play a video on that platform. And I'm just using on a social media platform for example, but each of those small, seemingly small tasks that you take whenever you are using any of these platforms, some design thinking was behind it. That to some degree that makes it feel very intuitive when a user, someone who, this is not their area of specialty, they were able to just go to the App Store, download it, and just use this app like they had been using it before. Like, you know where to go to message someone within the app. You know where to go if you want to like a post or go to where you save the post. If you want to create a post, you know where to go for that. All of that is kind of product design, you know.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I like that, and I'm happy that you're able to like break it down, because like I typically say, how would you explain it to a 5 year old, and that looks like what a 5 year old would be able to unpack easily. So thank you for that. Taking us to the very first principles of product design, what it is,
Mhm.
what needs to be done. But let's talk about like becoming a product designer in 2025. I mean, you went all the way to doing a master's degree in design and communication. And I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand here, why not maybe a 5 weeks boot camp? Or I see people advertise even on Instagram, become a product designer in 20 days. become become a user experience designer in six
Yeah.
weeks, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. There's a lot of all of those marketing stuff, and so. But I want to know, like, and you work at a very big scale for one of the greatest companies in the world. So, but I'm really trying to understand here, what role has or did your education play in you becoming like this great product designer that you are today? And then how do I become a product designer? Do I need to go ahead and get a master's? Can I jump on Instagram and look at the next advert that tells me I can become a product designer in 6 weeks or even in 2 days? I don't know. And then that's it. I'm just going to take that course, and then boom, I am working with Amazon. Boom, I am with Microsoft. And but
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that for you. You are like,
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I would say if you ask that question to 10 different product designers, you will probably get 10 different answers because it's it's very unique depending on the individual's personal experience up until the point they're deciding to transition. Because working as a product designer with other product designers, I always, tend to ask people about their background to see where people came from. And you'll find people have a very diverse range of backgrounds. You see people transition from banking, from being a baker, from being a teacher. It seems like you could be doing anything and then just get into product design. Like there is no, you know, pre-required background to have to jump into product design. And why is that? It's I would say it's because of the underlying principles or the foundation of product design. It's just caring about people, caring about the user of whatever platforms you're going to design. If you really care about them and you're curious enough to learn what it takes to deliver that delightful experience, I would say you would probably make a great product designer if you're willing to learn. Now, regarding like formal education, like is that required? Some people, I also see the 6 weeks get become a product designer in 6 weeks ads and all of that. It has worked for some people, and it also hasn't worked for a lot of people. So, like I said, it's very unique depending on who you ask the question.
right.
For me, I chose to pursue a master's degree in design as a whole. So communication design, the master's I pursued is in specifically product design. It's not niched to just product design. It's
Hmm.
communication design. So graphic design, motion design, product design. It's design as a whole because I wanted to make sure I had that deep foundational knowledge of design that I could then apply to whatever field within design that I wanted to pursue. So I wanted to build upon the foundational knowledge of design I got from architecture. And I think that's why my transition was, for me at least, very smooth, very seamless because of the parallels that already exist between architecture and product design. But for someone who maybe doesn't have a design adjacent background and they want to jump into it, um, there are lots of different ways to do it. I can't say this is the best way because something you also need to acknowledge is the market or the industry 3 years ago or 5 years ago when I first like got into it is completely different from what it is today now.
Correct.
Talking about especially with AI tools, where I know we're gonna get to that
Sure.
later. So the advice I would have given someone in 2022 or 2021 is not necessarily what I'll tell someone today. I know there are people who have successfully, taken those boot camp courses and, create put together a design portfolio and they've been able to get product design jobs and they're doing really well. Whereas some people it hasn't really worked out for them. What I would say is whatever means or way you choose to learn about product design, just make sure you're not just focusing on learning the tools product designers use because that's something a lot of people tend to confuse or pour their focus on at the start. They think I just need to be really good at Figma and then I'll be a great product designer. No, unfortunately that's not true. That's the biggest mistake you could make, honestly. You need to take courses or learn from people who can really teach you about the foundation, the principles. I would say the principles is what's really important. When you can learn how to think as a product designer. It doesn't matter what tools you know how to use at that point in time, or what tools would be coming out in the next few years. I think you'll be a very great product designer. So just try to get that foundational knowledge. And yeah, there are some courses that are really great at that. I know the Norman group, they have a couple of courses that will teach you, the basics of design thinking and all of that. Yeah, I would say definitely learn design thinking in depth, what it means to think like a designer, going through the whole design process of, empathy, problem definition, ideation, implementation, iteration, all of that. Definitely like get that ingrained into your system. And above all, just try to be curious, because the landscape is shifting so much that no single person can tell you this is the path you should take to become a successful product designer, and guarantee you that you will become a successful product designer. I don't think anyone can confidently say that right now, because AI is really changing things up. And I would also say leverage AI, because it is changing up the climate of the industry. You need to not fall behind. It's not like before where you just learn the principles of product design and learn Figma, and boom, you're probably good to get a job. Nah, a lot of people can use Figma these days. Like, it's so easy to use Figma. I really believe so. Just watch a couple of YouTube videos. Even me, when I was learning, because I didn't use Figma till I got into my masters, and they didn't really teach us how to use any of those tools. I was self-taught. So I just watched a couple of YouTube videos of, how to, use auto layout on Figma, how to, prototype on Figma, and I've been really great at it. So learning the tools is the easiest part. What is hard, and people may consider the boring aspect of it, is really learning how to think like a designer. Like, give yourself a problem, or use AI to help you come up with a problem, and try to solve it like a designer would. Try to see how you would approach that problem, how you would think about it, how you research about the problem, how what kind of solutions you would come up with. Like, with the age of ChatGPT and all these, LLMs, I think it's very easy to learn different skills right now. So getting that foundational knowledge in product design should be relatively easy. I would say if you can, definitely take structured courses, because they would help guide you. These are professionals that have been in the field for decades, or a few years at least. It's better than, trying to learn it by yourself with no guardrails. So courses or a guided structure, I feel, would always be better than just, you know, going online to grab whatever bits of knowledge you can. Not saying you can't be successful even if you just do that, but like I said, it comes down to the individual, and maybe whatever foundational knowledge you already had before you decided to take that leap to become a product designer. So I know that was a very long, complicated answer, but it is a complicated question in today's day and age. Like, it's it depends on the individual, is what I'd say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the way you are able to like break it down and sort of granularize it into like different categories and sort of personalities involved. So yes, I think you actually dealt with that very well because again, like you said, it's going to depend on a couple of factors like who is the individual involved, where are you coming from, where are you going to, yeah, because again, that's also important. I mean, take for instance someone that just wants to be like a product designer for like a maybe a startup that serves like 1,000 users, well, fine. But then if you want to be a product designer for a startup that serves like 10 million users, I feel like there is going to be a different kind of skill set or a different kind of capacity that you need to develop to be able to, operate at that level. So yeah, I like
Yeah.
the way you trashed that question. Let's quickly talk about like the product designer toolbox. I know that this is changing, but what is in there right now as at today? I know you talk about Figma a lot on this call, but I'm very sure it's not just Figma that we have there. Again, if you are right here with us, joining us live, feel free to like drop your question. If you have anything, tell us where you're joining from and your name. But if you have any question, just put it out there and then we are going to trash it. So we want to talk about like the product designer toolbox in 2025. maybe Figma. I don't know if Figma alone is the only thing. Maybe pencil and pen. I'm not sure. So
Yeah,
what are the tools? What are the tools? What is the mindset? What do you need to carry along in your toolbox to be a very, a global standard product designer in 2025?
yeah, for sure. I'll say Figma definitely is the most, popular and probably most widely used design tool in the industry right now, just because it's a very collaborative tool. So it's very useful in within an organization. I know maybe individual or freelance designers may tend to use separate tools or different tools, but within an organization, the structure of an organization, I think Figma right now is still leading as the main design tool. There are other platforms like, Lovable is another tool. There's Framer specifically for, website design. If you want to be able to, design and publish a website very quickly within the same platform, Framer is a really great one. um then there are AI tools that are also coming up, like UX Pilot AI is also a great one to check out. There are so many AI tools that are coming up that even I'm not, like, I can't say I know all the tools that are available today, but for someone who is just getting into the field, I would say try to not spread yourself too thin, trying to learn every different tool that has come out now. You're just gonna get lost, like I said, focus on the foundational knowledge of how to think like a designer, but of course, still try to learn the tools that are being used in today's industry. And you'll find that most companies, like if you were to apply for jobs and get to the interview stage and all of that, you'll find that most companies are using Figma within their organization. So Figma is definitely what I would recommend that you should at least learn to um, grasp the basics of Figma, because all these other tools that are coming up nowadays kind of are very similar to Figma in the way the UI looks, the experience within the app. So if you understand the basics of Figma, you'll be able to transition to another tool very easily. Like Framer, I picked up Figma first before I learned about Framer, but
Mhm.
because I already knew how to use Figma, learning Framer was very quick. Like a couple of days, I was good. So I would say right now, as a product designer, Figma should be the basic tool you should know how to use, but then you can start to look at all of these other innovative tools. Framer, UX Pilot AI, Lovable is
Mhm.
one that has been, making waves recently. And then just trying to keep up to date with, AI tools in general. I know there are a lot of vibe coding tools that are coming up that designers use to supplement their design. It's one thing to design something in Figma, but it's another thing to build it actually, and it's functional and you can test it. So vibe coding tools are also useful for that. You can use Replit for that. Figma actually has some of the AI features built in, so there's Figma Make within Figma that you could practice some vibe coding in. um yeah, I think that's about it. Fig Jam as well, for ideation, for just, jotting down user flows. And like you said, pencil and paper.
Right.
Yeah, nothing beats the good old pencil and paper, bro. Just
Right.
jotting down some ideas before you take it to the digital space. But Figma is great because it's very collaborative. Like I said, within the organization structure, it's easy to work with people even if you're not in the same physical space. So, yeah.
Okay. Why do I need to pay like tens and thousands of dollars to hire a product designer in 2025, when I can just go to one of these LLMs or just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm trying to build this music app. Can you give me like the wireframe or the design for the app? And then boom, in a few seconds, ChatGPT throws that at me. And then maybe I can even go to the same ChatGPT and say, hey, you know what? Can you give me all the code I need to build out this app and maybe even give me customers? Who knows? But to my point, we are in the age of AI, and AI is changing like everything. There is so much industry shift, there is so much career shift. So, what is the influence of this AI on the industry or the design career, like you can see? And how are you currently leveraging AI as a product designer? Let's just chat about that. What do you see in that space? And is it what it is a career worth it again in this age of AI? Or anyway, let's just talk about like the impact of AI on the product design
Yeah.
industry or even the career itself.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I mean, you see people online worried about, AI is going to take my job. So I think it's a very valid question today. But in terms of job security for product design specifically, I don't think right now, at least, I can't speak for next year or next 5 years where AI would get to because it's been growing very exponentially in the past 5 years. But right now, yeah, I'll say product design is still very much a great career choice. You're not going to get replaced by AI, at least not right now, because you can't just go into a chatbot and ask it to design a music streaming platform because a chatbot is not a human being. It's not going to be able to really empathize with the problems or what people are trying to get out of using a music streaming platform. It's going to be able to give you a decent looking UI right now because I've seen tools, AI tools that can give you a platform that looks really good. But is it very functional for your day-to-day activities? For the different kinds of scenarios you would end up in as you're going about your day. You're trying to listen to music on the car while you're driving to work, and you get out of your car, you still have your AirPods in, you're walking to the office, you're still listening to music. Is the AI going to factor in all of those nuances, all those, seemingly small changes that could really affect the experience of, using that music streaming platform? So that's just an example. Right now AI is not at that point. So I still very much believe that product designers are very needed in, creating experiences for different platforms today. Will it get to the point where you could do what you said, just type it in and AI will spit it out? I don't know. I have no idea. AI is growing very fast. I can't deny that. But
Yeah.
right now, no, it's not at that point yet. But how should you leverage the tools as a designer? Definitely one, try to stay up to date to see what tools are coming out, what the capabilities are. Try to push the boundaries of those tools, see what its limits are. Like that's why I'm so confident that AI tools can take the job right now because I have tried what you said. I've tried to, create platforms using AI to see if it can really do a great job. And right now, not really. But you can help it. You can use it to help your workflow today, in idea generation. There are times as a designer you get stuck on a problem. You're trying to think of, new ideas to help you just, where you get that creative block. AI tools can be really helpful in that sense. They might not give you the answer you need directly, but they might, generate something that may get you thinking in a different direction. So AI tools are very useful for design inspiration. um, they're very useful in creating that stepping stone that you can, spring off of to create your own designs. AI tools are also very useful for research. Before AI tools or ChatGPT, you needed to research a particular subject. You go on Google, you open so many tabs, you're researching different topics or maybe one topic, reading so many different articles, taking notes. AI tools can do all of those research for you, just like that.
Hmm.
Sure, you need to fact check it. I'm not saying, just go to ChatGPT and ask it to spit out this research and you believe everything it says because LLMs hallucinate a lot of times. So you need to, make sure you're using the AI tools very smartly. But what I'm trying to say is it can augment your existing process. It can make you work faster, more efficiently. So you're not spending hours doing what you can probably do in a few minutes with the aid of AI. So for me, I use it for research a lot. I use it to try to, optimize my research. I use it to in documentation. I'm trying to refine my writing a lot more. I use AI for that. For ideation as well, yeah, when I just need some visual prompts to get me thinking in a different direction, I use AI for that. What else? Right now, I'll say those are the key ways I use AI, but I'm sure as the tools develop more, there are other ways to be able to use it. Oh yeah, and with the vibe coding tools, I'll say that's a great way to, quickly test an idea to see if it's a direction you should really build on. You could
Mhm.
quickly vibe code a very basic platform and test that idea with a few users, get some very early feedback before you actually even start your main design process. So it's a way of like going through that whole design pipeline process very quickly with minimal resources, and start working off of very early, research data points. So that's another way I use AI tools.
The product design job market today, what is that like? I mean, I know that before, I mean, people have like a bunch of maybe ways to go about it. Some people say, hey, you know what, go on social media, talk about your work, build a portfolio, or look for a recruiter, or just, whatever, someone is just going to reach out to you or
Yeah.
share your work. There's a whole lot. But I really want to just talk about like, if you were like trying to get into the product design career now, or you're trying to get a job now in the product design job search process, how would you approach that in 2025? Would it be like sharing your work in public? Would it be like looking for recruiters? Would it be like chatting maybe founders of companies? I mean, you work with one of the greatest companies in the world. So how was that job search for you? And but how would you also like in the context of today's reality, how would you approach a job search for like especially for product designers who are pretty much fresh and trying to get into the industry?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And I would say do all of that. Like if you're looking for a product design job in today's market, all of what you said is what you should be doing. And for the record, today's market really annoys me. Like it's very bad, very, very bad. Personally, I don't believe you should have to become like a LinkedIn influencer, having to be, creating posts every other week just to get some visibility. Like you have to jump through all those loops just to get a job. I feel like is just a very horrible indication of how terrible the market is. If you need to do all of that just to get a job, it's horrible. I know people have been doing that since a long time, but usually those would be like the people that are going above and beyond. But others were still able to get jobs. But right now it seems like that is the minimum threshold you need to of what you need to do just to get a job, and it's insane. So yeah, you already mentioned most of the key things you should be doing. Posting your work. People need to see you can do great stuff, and the best
Mhm.
way is to post the work you have in your portfolio on social media platforms. LinkedIn, the best one, since that is kind of you know the goal of the platform to connect you with people professionally. You could also post your work on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I know a lot of designers post their work on Twitter as well. So yeah, just getting visibility on your work, and also, like you said, trying to reach out to recruiters, trying to reach out to designers at the companies you're trying to get into. Because the truth is, a cold application that's just going online, clicking apply and submitting your application. Thousands of people are doing that. It's going to be very hard for your resume to, just stand out, or if they even get to your resume, because different companies have different ways of, their hiring process. I don't know. Some companies are using AI to sift through the resumes. Some actually have people going through every resume, but there's always that chance that if 1,000 people have applied before you, they might not even see your application. So the best way to get your foot in the door is to talk to someone who's already at that company. Try to build a relationship with them. Try to, you know, let them see what you're capable of to some degree. Have a personal relationship, because I'm more likely to recommend someone I've had maybe two or three conversations with, even if I don't I don't know them that well, but just the fact that I've had conversations with them um one or two times, and they sounded like, a great designer, they sounded like a great person, I'm more likely to recommend someone like that than to, I don't know, recommend someone that just reached out to me with a vague message like, "Hey, can you please recommend me for this job?" I don't know you, bro.
Yeah, that happens every day and twice on
Like,
Sunday.
I don't know you, bro. Or even worse, like someone that doesn't even send that message at all, that just applies into the void. Not saying it's impossible to get a job through the normal application process. It's still very possible. It's just right now the market is really horrible. There are qualified people that have been, working at all these big companies that got laid off, that are now competing with people who are just trying to get into the industry, who have 0 to 1 year of experience.
Experience, yeah.
So it's like an unfair job market for people who have very little experience, and also still very unfair to the experienced people who got laid off from their jobs. So it's just horrible in general. So yeah, definitely do everything you can. Post your work, try to get visibility, try to be very active on LinkedIn, because you never know who is looking at your activity feed, like, seeing the post you're creating, who would, speak for you in rooms you're not even there. Like someone could recommend you for a job and you don't even know about it, just because they saw a post you made earlier that made a lot of sense to them, or they really liked your work. So you never know. But yeah, building personal relationships with people who are already in the industry is the way to go, because they'll be the ones that will be able to advocate for you the best to, the hiring managers in all those spaces. But yeah, I have to acknowledge, like, the market is just really horrible. I don't You can do all of that and still not get a job. Like,
Right.
it's absurd. It's absurd. Terrible.
Yeah, but then I mean, thank you for like providing like all of those nuances, because I mean, in light of the reality on ground, it just feels like there is no one size fits all. You just
Yeah,
have to leverage like all the channels and platforms and
exactly.
resources at your disposal to be able to
Exactly.
get an opportunity. Israel, let's talk about designing for scale. I mean, you've worked with a MoneyGram, and then you now work with Amazon Music. I feel like
Mhm.
at Amazon, like one of like we call them the Fortune 5. Like this is like a global company that has like millions of users, and at that stage, you are designing for scale. You are designing for millions and millions of users, which I feel like it's different from designing for maybe 1,000 users, 10, hundred
Yeah,
thousand users.
for sure.
So what is that? What is that distinguishing factor between like when you are like in the headspace of designing for hundreds of millions of users actually, compared to like maybe just maybe 1 million or maybe 500,000? Is there any difference there? What is that like?
Oh
What's the
yeah,
distinguishing your sentiment around that?
there definitely is a difference, because like you said, more people are using the platform, so it means more eyes are on everything you're doing. So you can't afford to make mistakes that would, maybe have just passed or would have been excused when you were working on a product that had a very, way smaller user base. So all those seemingly small features or details that people might not really pay attention to when you're at a company like Amazon and you're designing for scale, like you say, you have to really pay attention to it. Because even if it's just, if it was a, like you said, a small company that had 1,000 users, if a feature was lacking in the platform that was affecting maybe just two people in out of the 1,000 people, you could say that's insignificant. You don't need to devote a lot of resources to try to fix that experience. But when you're designing for a platform that has millions of users, that two people for an audience of 1,000 users can translate to, say, 2 million people, 2 million users.
Yeah.
So for that same small feature that you would have otherwise overlooked, because it doesn't make sense, to commit that much resources just to please two people. Not saying you shouldn't, but if you have the resources, do it. But in an organization, there's usually products, hierarchy. There's usually, priorities. They prioritize what needs to be tackled, because resources are fine at different companies. So At a company like Amazon, we have to care about those small details, because even if it's affecting just 1% of the general um user base, like I said, if that's 100 million, 1% of that is 1 million. That is 1 million use. That's a huge amount
It
of
is.
people it's affecting. So you need to care about those details. You really need to. And you need to also listen to your user base a lot closer, because patterns tend to emerge a lot faster with a user base that is that large. If a few people start talking about a specific feature and it keeps getting traction with more people, because there's such a large user base, it's easy for trends to start forming. Trends in terms of like the opinion of that product. So you need to really put your ear to the ground to make sure you're covering all the bases. So it still ties into the first point of just you need to pay more attention to small things. You need to really make sure you're covering all the bases. I would say that's the most important factor in terms of designing for scale. I'm trying to see what else. When you're thinking of new features, just um, making sure it's relevant a to a decent amount of the audience you're designing for. Like, you can't design something that is not useful to majority of your audience.
Mm.
Like, you have a very large user base. You need to listen to them. So it still ties into that previous point. You need to the users are the ones guiding the products, man. You can't design a feature that just looks cool and it's fantastic, but if nobody really wants to use it, then it's pointless.
Right.
So listen to the users a lot closer. Not saying at a smaller company you shouldn't be doing all these things. You should, but the business impacts of not doing those things at a company like Amazon is going to be way greater than if a small company should neglect those things. The costs are usually reparable, like not as significant.
Okay. As we round up, I'm going to ask you like our most maybe probably our most popular question on this show, like we call it how they started, but for career. So what is that? What is that one thing about your career that is not public knowledge? People have like this one thing they did or one time in their career or one event that happened in their career, and it's very, very significant, but it's not public knowledge. I mean, if I go to your LinkedIn and I'm gonna see, oh, Israel Adeleye, user experience designer, Amazon Music. That sounds so cute, so fancy. Well, I know there is more to it, and sometimes that more to it will not make it to LinkedIn or to your X profile or to your Instagram and whatever, or even to your resume. But then the question is, well, what is that one thing about your career that is not public knowledge, but it's like something very significant that happened in the journey?
Um, that's a good question. I may have to think about it. It's not public knowledge.
Yeah,
Mm.
could be an event, whatever, an activity, whatever, a time in the career, and all of that.
Uh, let's see. The moment is coming to mind, but I don't know how significant it is.
You never can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I attended the AIGA conference in 2022, and I met a lot of AIGA design conference. So it's like the national design conference in the US. It happens every year at different locations. So I attended it in 2022 and 2023, and I know I met some great designers there. I also met some people at Amazon. But I wouldn't necessarily say that is what helped me get my foot in the door. But at the same time, I can't say that isn't. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
me already engaging with some people at the company might have helped me in a way I didn't realize at the time to get my foot in the door. So, like I said, I don't know how relevant that is. Something that's also not on my LinkedIn. Um, in my free time, from time to time, I will do like digital art. Like creating photo composites.
What is that?
So using Photoshop, now it's very less relevant. It just used to be more of a hobby because right now with AI tools, that has completely eliminated the need for what I was doing. So it's like taking different images and trying to create a unified scene or a unified photo from that. So I used to create, fantasy art like scenes, like, a mythical creature in the woods or something that I would create out of, basic animal pictures or nature pictures. I would just mash it all up together using Photoshop to create one unified scene. So that's like creating photo composites. Um, I don't know how relevant that has been in my career, like how it has helped me hone my design skills, maybe my attention to detail, because in order to create really good results for that specific hobby, you need to pay attention to a lot of details. So the image doesn't look off or it doesn't look like a poorly AI generated image. So that's just one hobby I used to have. I haven't been doing it a lot lately because AI tools have kind of eliminated the need for that. So I
Yeah.
don't know if those really answer your question because I'm pretty transparent on my LinkedIn. It
Okay.
it dictates my journey so far. My journey at Amazon started at the internship I got in 2023. And to be honest, I got that internship through a normal application. Like I said, I don't know if meeting people at the AIGA conference helped to some
Hmm.
degree, but I just applied for the job for the internship normally, did the interview and I got the job. So I thank God for that.
Yeah.
I've always seen it as a miracle, but that was when my journey to being a product designer at Amazon started because I was able to, come back full time last year. So uh,
Okay. And then as we round up Israel, do you want to have like any comment, any shout out, or anything you just wanted to talk about that I never asked in the whole process? You just want to just put it out there and maybe just encourage people who are trying to get into the product design career.
yeah,
Whatever other thing you just wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's just for anybody out there who's trying to get into the field. Like I said, I know the market is horrible, but please don't be discouraged. Every day, I know, depending on what your feed looks like on LinkedIn, you could be seeing messages of people getting, rejections or layoffs, and it can seem all negative, but just know that there is always another side to it. There are people that are also rejoicing, getting their, first jobs, getting a new position, a promotion in the product design field. So just keep believing that it's possible to get that job. Keep doing what's necessary. Keep learning. Keep developing your skill set. Keep being curious, and trust me, you'll be fine. So,
All right, and the very last one, Israel, coffee or tea?
tea, bro. I'm sorry, I'm not a coffee person. I just can't.
Okay, it is on that note that we wrap up my Career Chronicles episode 15. And thank you so much, Israel.
Yeah,
That
thanks for
was
having me. It
such
was
a
a
great
great
conversation.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then back and have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. Mhm.
Yeah.